Okay, here we have a really good question from Mr. Zen626. He says, I feel like learning to trade is lonely and frustrating. Any advice for someone trying to keep headstrong through the learning process? All right, so let's kind of talk about the life of, or like the lifespan of learning here. Because I mean, you're always going to be learning, but when you're first beginning is what I'm assuming you're coming from the perspective of. So how does that work? Well, first things first, when you first start out, you obviously need some sort of outside inputs. That's the informational learning gathering phase. That's probably why you're on YouTube, searching around how to trade or stuff like that and looking at things like this channel, which can be okay to start with. But here's the thing. Once you kind of have a general idea of what you want to do, you actually want to remove all outside influences. I would tell you straight up, do not watch this channel. Probably don't want to watch anything. Don't go into Discord situations. Don't do it, because at some point you need to go into your own little cave essentially and work your strategy out in exactly the way that works for you. So we having a really good discussion about this in the Discord yesterday. Funnily enough, and basically what we were discussing is that people can have this, they can be using the same sorts of edge, whether it's an indicator, whether it's flow analysis, whether it's whatever the fuck, but the way that they trade that source of edge can be completely different. In fact, it's almost always going to be unique from person to person. In fact, I would even go as far as saying it almost needs to be unique. If you notice on this channel, I never really give out like specific things because I don't think it's actually going to be helpful for people. You're not going to have too much success just like blindly following someone and coming up with a strategy that way. You want to sort of go through the template and see, okay, this is what like a good setup looks like, and then create it for yourself that is going to be in alignment with your own personal preferences as a trader, and something that's going to be relatable to you and sustainable for yourself to maintain over time. Until you do that, you're never truly going to be professional and on your own, because to be a professional trader, or to be a trader in general, is to be in isolation and is to be your own authority, which means that you have to be comfortable with making the calls for yourself, not looking towards any other outside input, although it is completely fine. And what I love about the Discord is that once you go through that learning process and kind of isolate yourself, then you can come back. And it's like you're coming back to the fucking tribe, and you can relate as colleagues, and you can share ideas without letting the other ones influence you, because you've already naturally gone through that process and solidified what you need to solidify. So I'd say it should be lonely, actually. The beginning phase, however, that's when you can kind of peruse around YouTube, maybe, I don't know, read a book. I didn't really find too much success with that when it comes to trading. Maybe be in some Discord communities, just see what other successful traders' plans looks like, and then start to base something kind of around that template, and then morph it slowly into your own. That's where you want to be, and then you become your own authority, and then that's when you essentially have your skill for life. And yeah, it is frustrating. Of course it's frustrating. I mean, it's fucking difficult. Otherwise everyone would do it, and we'd all be rich as fuck, and that's just not what most people do, right? And that's because most people are not comfortable being their own authority. I know that you're probably gonna have a knee-jerk response, or people will have a knee-jerk response, say, yeah, man, I want to be my own boss. I want to do this. I like the lifestyle. Like, okay, but are you going to go through the rigmarole of actually learning it? Because first you got to learn the basics of whatever edge you want to use. Okay, that's the easy part, obviously. Then you have to create a strategy. Okay, that's somewhat easy as well. Then you have to backtest the strategy. Very meticulous, technically easy, but most people don't do this. Hey, backtest your strategy 100 to 200 times. There you go. And then you want to start off slow. You want to then test that strategy with a real account with a very low dollar amount, maybe even on a demo account, and then slowly start to rank up from there. That's where you can really start to come into your own. And yeah, it will be frustrating, as with anything that is worth having. You're going to go through the learning process. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be lonely. And so, you can kind of reconvene with community at that point. But it is actually a really natural point that I've noticed for anyone who's been in my program, who's become successful with it. I believe always strongly now that it's been out for like three years, I think, actually, that at some point everyone goes into isolation. They remove all of the outside noise, not because they don't, not because of what other people has to say is not valuable or doesn't work for them, it's because they need to be able to verify themselves for themselves. It's almost like a rite of passage. And then once they kind of come up with their own strategy, and they're like, okay, I can come back here, I can listen to other people, but I don't let it over influence what I'm actually trying to do myself. So that's a long way of saying, yeah, it should feel like that. And there you go. Hopefully that was helpful, man.